Parliamentary Budget Officer has issued some strong criticism today of the federal government for its lack of transparency around the hundreds of billions of dollars in pandemic spending that it's pushing out the door. He warns that it makes it more difficult for parliamentarians to perform the critical function of overseeing government spending and holding the government to account. Parliamentary Budget Officer Yves Giroux joins me now. Mr. Giroux, good to see you again. Thanks for taking time to speak with me tonight. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Tell me what specific pandemic spending you were looking into as you put together this report.
Well, we looked at the entirety of pandemic spending, and that includes the CERB and its successors, the CEWS, so the wage subsidy, the other programs for businesses. There are so many acronyms, it's easy to lose track of them. So we were looking at virtually all of the major programs that the government has put in place, has replaced, and has put successors to them. For example, the CERB was replaced by the Canada Recovery Benefit. So all these programs we're trying to keep a tab on and trying to estimate how much these will cost.
And why do you have concerns about the transparency around that spending?
Well, we have concerns because while we know when the government announces them, that the government puts estimates out as to the cost that the government plans on allocating to each of these programs, there's little follow-up as to whether the spending is progressing as expected. And before Parliament was prorogued in August, the government provided estimates every 2 weeks to the Finance Committee of the House of Commons as to the amounts spent to date on these programs.
But right, and that's with prorogation that stopped, and
exactly.
it never started back up?
Exactly. So we thought that with prorogation it would stop, as it happened. But when Parliament was reconvened, we expected these information provisions to resume again, but it hasn't happened. So we haven't seen these bi-weekly updates from the government, which was a bit surprising and also disappointing for us, because that's a good piece of accountability for the government, and it helps parliamentarians keep close eyes on government spending.
Okay, so to be clear, is there a document, is there a paper trail anywhere that you were able to find, that you have seen, that details all of the government pandemic measures to date and how much they are costing?
Not since early August, which was the last report the government provided to the Finance Committee of the House of Commons. So between August and now, we haven't seen anything. Maybe the government plans on providing that type of information when the Minister of Finance releases her update, which she has promised sometime this fall. And the fall goes until the end of December, so December 21st. So between now and that time, we're hopeful we will see some type of estimate that would provide the information that we haven't seen since early August.
Okay, now, so when you were looking into this spending, did you go to Finance Department officials and say, hey, where are these updates from every 2 weeks? Why have they stopped? And if you did, what kind of answer did you get?
We are in constant communications with the Department of Finance. We haven't asked that information, so not directly. We didn't get that far. We were hoping that this information would be provided to parliamentarians. In the meantime, we've been quite busy with the provision and the calculation of our own cost estimates of the various programs that have been announced since. But we haven't gotten that far, or we haven't asked the government, because I'm not sure we would have gotten any answer that's wait and see.
Okay, because what we've heard in different sometimes to different questions is, look, the public servants are so busy trying to get the programs organized, get the money out of the door, that some of this other stuff isn't getting done. So if they're too busy to put it out, is that acceptable to you?
Well, I don't think you can pretend, or you can say that you're too busy doing something else when that would not justify dropping some information or forgetting about the provision of information to parliamentarians on programs that are worth dozens of billions of dollars per year. So if you're too busy to do that, what else is it that you're working on? And keeping in mind that there thousands of public servants in this city. So I think there should be a few public servants who have time to provide information to parliamentarians on the billions and billions of dollars that are spent on a monthly basis, or probably on a weekly basis.
And I guess you're not happy with we have heard suggestions from the new finance minister, Christopher Freeland, that when we do get a fiscal update, that some of that costing will be in there. But is that delay acceptable to you, or should parliamentarians, since they're dealing with the programs now, should they see the numbers now?
Well, I think we owe it to parliamentarians and to Canadians to provide information to them as to how much are these programs costing to date. And we highly suspect that this information exists somewhere. It's just a matter of putting it together and releasing it to parliamentarians and to Canadians. That being said, we understand there's a transition that took place at finance to a new minister, and it takes some time for a minister, especially in a portfolio as important as finance, to get accustomed to the various files. And considering that she's also the deputy prime minister, it obviously takes a bit of time.
Let me suggest that the people who are putting together the cost estimates and the costing every 2 weeks, the finance minister changed. I'm guessing those people didn't. They didn't all leave the department and go somewhere else. Look, you also examined the cost of implementing the government's legislation to bring pay equity to federally regulated workforces. How much will that cost?
Well, we estimate it'll cost about $600 million per year on an ongoing basis, but we had to estimate that using publicly available information because the government was reluctant to give us the finer information, the more detailed information that would have been useful to do a thorough estimate on that, or a more refined estimate.
Right. So are you suggesting that you're starting to get blocked in some of these studies you're trying to do by government officials?
Well, it's one instance, so one data point is not indicative of a trend. What Treasury Board Secretariat officials have told us is that information, the information we sought initially, is cabinet confidence. So that's why they couldn't provide it to us. So we circumvented that by using publicly available information. We don't know exactly how different the estimate would have been using the TBS data that is supposedly a cabinet confidence, but we haven't seen significant pushback from the government as to the amount that we came up with in our report. Okay. So that suggests the cost is probably broadly in line with what the government's own. Yeah.
All right. Parliament's Budget Officer, Yves Giroux, always good to talk to you. Thanks for your time again today.
Pleasure.